Let me start by saying that I am probably not the most objective person to be making a pros and cons list of San Diego. After all, I spent 20 something years trying to get back here because I love it so much. But I think you're gonna find some things on my pro list and my con list that you probably aren't gonna find other places. So let's get started with the pros. The most obvious pro, and the first thing that's going to be on any pro and con list you see, is of course the weather. We have an average temperature of 65 degrees, and pretty much every day is somewhere in the 60s or 70s, and at night we're in like the 50s. It's hard to complain about. Even when it's cold, it's not that cold. And depending on where you are in San Diego, if you're closer to the coast, it never really gets that hot. Now, if you're inland, that's a whole different story, and you need to be aware of that. Make sure you have air conditioning if you're living inland, because it will get hot. But for the most part, we live in paradise, and the weather is amazing. Now, because of the weather, we have so many outdoor things we can do. Obviously, we're right by the beach, so that's a huge one, and that's usually its own category on people's pro and cons list. I'm just going to include it in outdoor activities because going to the beach is just one of the many things you can do in the outdoors in San Diego. We have tons of hiking. In fact, one of my favorite things to do is to zoom in on different neighborhoods on Google Maps and look for the little local hiking trails and see where those are and go explore those, because there is like literally hiking everywhere. It's crazy. We have snow just 3 hours away in Big Bear, or that's for skiing, or you can just go see the snow like an hour away in Julian or Palomar Mountain, or you can go to Idlewild. There's so many different options for that. And of course, there's just biking and paddleboarding and kayaking, and you can do yoga outside. I mean, there's just a never-ending supply of outdoor things to do if that is what you like to do. If you don't want to be an outdoorsy person, but you just want to get out and about and explore, we have lots of options for that. You can head to Balboa Park and go to the zoo, of course, but there's also a ton of different museums there. There's cultural activities and fairs and restaurants and all kinds of things you can do there. You can head over to Liberty Station, where there are shops and restaurants and lots of things to explore. There's classes you can take. There's a roller skating area, all kinds of stuff. We have Old Town, of course. We have La Jolla Cove you can go check out with the sea lions. You can go to outdoor movies during the summer. You can go to concerts at the Shell or one of the many other locations around town that host concerts, including many of the local parks. There's just a never-ending supply of things to do here in San Diego, partly because of pro number one, the weather allows it. Another thing I really love about San Diego is that we have great proximity to a ton of other places. So you can take day trips or weekend trips and like almost never run out of places to go. First of all, Mexico's like right down the freeway. It's really, really close. So if you want to go check out Rosarito or TJ or go to the wine country in Mexico, you can do as a day trip or a really easy weekend trip. Palm Springs is just a couple hours away. The Anza Borrego Desert is really close. Joshua Tree. You could head up to LA or Santa Barbara, go to Central Coast Wine Country. Temecula's right there with its wine country. There are so many different places that you can go and explore and get away from San Diego if you really want to and just see different parts of California or just the surrounding areas. If you have kids, you'll like the next one. We have fantastic schools. Canyon Crest, which is actually nearby to where I live, is the #2 school in all of California, and we have many other schools that are in the top ones in California. Also, our universities. We have 3 of the top 25 universities in California. So if you are looking for an education or you have somebody in your family who needs one, we got you covered. Now, one of my favorite things about San Diego is that it's super dog friendly. We have 4 dog beaches, which are fantastic because you can let your doggo roam off leash on these beaches and they can play with other dogs or go swimming in the ocean or just do what dogs do. We have tons of dog parks. Pretty much every neighborhood has at least one dog park. Many shops will let dogs in, no problem. So don't be afraid to at least try and take them in. And most restaurants are as dog friendly as they can be. If they have some sort of outdoor area, chances are Fido is going to be welcome and they'll have water waiting for them. One thing that San Diego is becoming known for is its food scene. Now, this used to be mostly in like the downtown area. Little Italy is obviously known for it, and the Gas Lamp and stuff down there. But the food scene is quickly spreading to all of San Diego County. In fact, we have been voted the #5 best foodie city by Rent.com and the #1 most fun place to live by the US News and World Report, and a lot of that is due to the food scene. So we have places like the Sky Deck in Carmel Valley. We have other food halls all around the area. There are tons of restaurants to try. Obviously, we're known for tacos. The California burrito is big down here, and fish tacos. But there is so many other types of food to try. We have Convoy Street, which has lots of different ethnic food that's really awesome. Like some of the food down there is amazing, and just so much to explore. So if you like food and craft beer, we're big on that too. San Diego's a great place for you. One of my favorite things about San Diego is we have a super laid back vibe here. I mean, obviously we have a surfing culture. Everyone's like very focused on the beach. So pretty much jeans and flip-flops or shorts is kind of normal around here. So I grew up in Southern California. I wear jeans pretty much every day. For me, dressed up is nice jeans and a nice shirt. So if you are liking that kind of vibe and don't want to have to get dressed up all the time, this is the place to be. Even the fancy restaurants pretty much aren't going to have dress codes. You'll find an exception here and there, but for the most part, we are all about flip-flops, jeans, and hoodies because it does get cold here. One thing I don't think a lot of people think about when they're moving to a city, but can be a really big pro, is the healthcare system. In San Diego, we have 3 of the top 20 hospitals in California, UCSD, Scripps, and Sharp, and they are readily accessible all over the San Diego area. You can find offices, so very easy to get healthcare whenever you need it, and top quality at that. This next pro definitely has some people who disagree with me on this. So I think the airport is a pro. I know there's a lot of people out there who think the airport is aging and needs help. It only has 1 runway. It can be very expensive, blah, blah, blah. We have an airport. It's an international airport. I personally consider that a pro. The airport's like 20 to 30 minutes away. I love that. So for me, I'm gonna go with the airport as a pro. All right, now we're gonna get into the ones that I don't think most people are gonna list. And one that I didn't even really totally think of as a pro until I've been living here for a while is the proximity to Mexico. And that's not just for getting to go to Mexico on vacation or anything like that, but a lot of people in San Diego actually use Mexico for really inexpensive vet care, dental care, health care. They actually fly out of the Mexico airport if they're going for vacation in Mexico. So there's actually a lot of benefits to having Mexico just a few minutes away. All right, this next pro, I promise, isn't on anybody else's list, but this is mine. Nature. San Diego's nature, I am just constantly tickled by. So first of all, we have hummingbirds like crazy. If you like hummingbirds, I didn't even know how much I liked hummingbirds until I got here, and they are all over the place. It's hummingbird central. I love it. It is so fun. And we got crazy looking plants. I love it. There is so many like succulents and just all kinds of different plants and flowers and trees and everything that it's just really fun to look at people's yards and see what they've done to utilize the like local plants and the succulents. And we have awesome gardens like in Balboa Park where you can go see them. I love it. I think there's so many plants in here that to me look like Dr. Seuss plants, which of course Dr. Seuss is from San Diego, so makes sense to me. But for me, The plants, the hummingbirds, definitely 2 pros. All right, so now that I'm done with the pros, I'm super curious. What is your favorite pro? Like, what did you agree with on that list? Is there anything I missed? Anything you disagree with? I'd love to hear, so comment below. And now let's go on to the cons. I mean, for me, it's hard to really believe that there are any cons in San Diego because it's paradise and it's practically perfect, and I'm grateful to be here every single day. But there are some things that should definitely be mentioned, and some other things, like I said, that you're not going to find on anybody else's list, but I'm going to tell you about because I think they're good to know. So the first one, obviously, is the cost of living. It's super expensive to live here, not going to lie. I personally think it's worth every penny if you can afford it, because it is basically paradise, but it's not cheap. We just hit $1 million as the average price point here. You know, rents are, easily $2,500 for a 1-bedroom in most places. So definitely not an inexpensive place, but can be totally worth it. We call it the sunshine tax. And I don't know, for some people like me, it's worth it. Maybe not for you. Another con that unfortunately has been getting worse all over California is homelessness. We definitely have a lot of it, especially if you are more in the downtown area or closer to downtown. It tends to be less the further north you get. So I know when I was moving back here, I had friends who told me, like, you have to be in North County, definitely be north of La Jolla, otherwise it's all homeless people, and I wouldn't go that far. But there's definitely a lot. I did actually end up moving to North County in part to get away from some of that. So I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely there, but you can kind of get away from it depending on where you live. But if you're gonna live, in the Gas Lamp or Little Italy or somewhere like that, just be prepared that it's definitely a part of life here. I mean, if I were stuck being homeless and in that horrible situation, I'd go somewhere where the weather was perfect also, so. All right, this one's on everyone's list, but I disagree with it. I'm putting it here just because apparently I'm in the minority, but traffic. So everyone complains about the traffic in San Diego. That being said, if you've lived in LA or the Bay Area or Atlanta like I have, the traffic's way worse in all of those places. I personally don't think the traffic here is all that bad. Even in the spots where it gets bad, it just doesn't feel nearly as bad as LA or the Bay Area. And people can drive way better than they do in Atlanta. So it's a con. There is traffic. It's best to plan around it, like plan where you live based on what your commute's going to be, stuff like that. But just know that it's not as bad as other places. Another one that makes it onto most pro and con lists is the lack of public transportation in San Diego. We do have some. There is the coaster train that goes up and down the coast. We have the Amtrak line as well that can get you up into LA really easily. And then there is a trolley line being built out, but it doesn't serve a ton of the areas yet. So that is definitely something to think about. If you're living in San Diego, you're gonna need a car unless all of your life is like, in downtown or Little Italy or something like that. Chances are you're gonna need a car. All right, some of the cons that I don't think you're gonna find on other lists are, for me, one is the beaches get super crowded during the summer. So I'm not a big beach goer, but there have been times where I've been like, hey, you know what? It's really pretty today. Maybe we should go to the beach, or at least like go see sunset or whatever. And it is crazy at the beach. It's like packed, like wall to wall people. So just know that while we have the beaches, you have to learn to kind of work them and know when to get there and know which ones to go to and all of that, because they can get really, really crowded. Another con that I don't think anyone's going to mention, but I will because I'm super sensitive to this stuff, is May gray and June gloom. So what that is we have perfect weather all the time, right? There's one exception. So in May and June, we tend to have this grayness that can last anywhere from all day down to just a few hours in the morning or maybe a few hours in the evening. It's just a marine layer that comes in overnight and then usually burns off by like 11. but then can come back by like 3 or 4. Every now and then it will just stay all day, but it is known as June gloom and May gray, and just know that it makes things a little bit colder during those months and kind of gloomy. All right, this next one I have been complaining about with California for pretty much my whole life. And it was one thing I did love about the South that I think I'm also very unique with, but California gets cold at night. So chances are, if it was gorgeous and beautiful during the day, you are going to have a layer at night. Now, later, like September, this definitely can get better, or if it's like more humid, it's not quite as bad. But for the most part, whatever you were wearing during the day, you're going to be changing into layers and like more clothes as soon as the sun goes down, because the second the sun turns off, the temperature plummets and it gets really cold. So one thing that all Californians are really good at is layering, and we basically just take a jacket or a sweatshirt or something with us pretty much wherever we go. Okay, these two pretty much going to impact you wherever you are in California, but just wanted to bring them up. Earthquakes and drought. We have earthquakes. There's just no way around that. Usually they're very small. Usually you're never going to feel them. But I have been in California my whole life, and I've been hearing that we're going to have the big one in 30 years for the past 30 years. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means, you know, we're more likely to have it tomorrow, or if it still could be 30 years from now. I don't know. But just know we have earthquakes. They're there. Usually they're not that big of a deal, but it is good. It's a good idea to have an emergency kit in probably both your car and at home, just in case we have a big one where the electricity is out for a long time and you don't have access to food. Drought is something that the entire state is experiencing, and some areas are definitely experiencing it more than others. Some places are under water conservation rules, so you can only water your lawn at certain times or only a certain amount. You may have a certain water usage level that you can't exceed or you get fined. There are definitely rules like that. You know, pretty much in general, we always try to turn our water off if, you know, like in between dishes or when we're like brushing our teeth, and, you know, kind of let it mellow when it's yellow and flush it down when it's brown, like that kind of stuff, just to do our part to try and save the water, because drought is an issue. We don't get much rain here, which is one of the things I love, but it's also a problem. One of the cons of living in San Diego is that in many places there's quite a bit of airplane noise. In fact, I have jets going over right now. Maybe you can hear them. I live pretty close to Miramar Air Force Base, and there you go, they're getting louder now. And multiple times a day, mostly in the morning and later in the day, we have jets going over. I personally love it for the most part because I think it's really cool to see them, but it can get really loud at times. So that's definitely something to think about. If you live near the San Diego airport, same thing. If you're like in Bankers Hill, there's a couple other regional airports that also have lots of noise. All right, these last two you'll never see anywhere, but I'm gonna bring them up because it's kind of fun. So we have stingrays and sharks. They're just there. If you go to Mission Bay, I rode crew in college and was told there were stingrays, and every time we got out of the boat, we had to swish our foot to like scare them away before we stepped down, and I never saw any. So I kind of thought it was an urban legend. They're there. When I go paddleboarding, I see them. There are definitely stingrays in the bay. So just be aware of that. If you're at all scared of the water or anything like that, just know that they are there. They're easy to scare away, but make sure you do it because otherwise their wings can go up and they can sting you, and don't do that. And then of course there are sharks. Like, it's just a part of life in California and in the Pacific Ocean. We do have sharks off the coast. There are some that are totally harmless and you can go snorkeling with them, and then there are great whites. So just be aware, know that they're there, Also know that sharks don't actually like the taste of humans, so usually you're going to be perfectly safe. Done with all the cons now. I still think we live in paradise. I still think San Diego's perfect, and none of those cons can scare me away. But I'm curious to hear, what do you think? Are there any cons that I missed? Any of those stand out to you as you're glad I said them because you hadn't heard them before? Comment below and let me know. And if you've been thinking about moving to San Diego and that cons list didn't scare you away, click on the link below to get your free relocation guide. It has all kinds of information about all the different neighborhoods in San Diego and kind of help you figure out where you want to land. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out. If you found any value in this video at all, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more videos that are coming.